welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be going through the worst books of 25. So I actually believe I have 11 books to talk to you about today, and that is all of my 2 and 1 stars. I just I usually do a top 10 list, but I was like, there's no point in me just leaving 1 2-star off. So I might as well include that as well. So all the 2s and 1s of the year. Luckily there wasn't that many. I feel like usually I have maybe 15-ish. So there was less, which I appreciate. So I'll take my wins where I can. And obviously the usual disclaimers. If you love one of these books, I'm happy for you. A lot of these books I actually don't have oh my god, I hated this really specific thing about it. This was horrible. This was a terrible book. A lot of these books aren't that way. A lot of them were just, I was bored. I have this habit of being very nice, especially when it's a debut book, which there's a good few of these. And so a lot of these, I think I originally, at first I gave them 3-star, and then I was looking at them and I was like, I don't like these. Why are they 3-star? Because 3-star means I like it, but I had issues with it. So this year I was a little more conscious of that, I think, of being there wasn't anything atrocious about it. It wasn't the worst written book, or it wasn't something really offensive, but I didn't like it. Therefore it's a 2-star. So don't be too offended if there's a book that you really like on this. It just means I didn't like it. All personal preference, doesn't mean that it's a horrible book. I think that kind of gets the disclaimer out of the way, so let's actually talk about the books that I didn't like this year. So in 11th position was The Devils by Joe Abercrombie. So this is the first book in a new series from him. I have just come to the conclusion that Joe Abercrombie is not the author for me. This follows a ragtag group of people that are tasked with bringing a princess to a faraway city because she was thought to be long lost and now she's not. So there's a priest and some magical creatures and obviously this princess, and there's thieves. It's a very weird bunch. And I just didn't care. I will say, this one almost got a 3-star for me because the last 100 pages were great. I really liked those, and I was even maybe I'll even read the sequel. And I'm like, what is wrong with me? You didn't like the book that much. Just the first however much of it, as I said, the last 100 or so, I really enjoyed. The rest of it, I didn't care. I just think I have to come to the terms with the fact that Joe Abercrombie is not the author for me. I read Half a King. I think I gave that a 3-star. I read the First Law trilogy. I think I gave it 4, 3, and then 2. So I think it's time to just be he's not the author for you. I think, and this is probably something you're going to hear me say about 10 times in this video, I like the idea behind it. In his, The First Law, you're following this interesting group of people. They're not all perfect people, and you kind of get emotionally attached. I didn't get emotionally attached to a lot of the characters in both of these, in that series and also in this book, which is why it is so low, because I think you do have to even if you don't love them, you have to be intrigued by them, and I just never really got that connection. But I think it's an interesting concept because he's kind of just there's so much happening around them, but not necessarily, they're not the most important people. That doesn't really count in this book, but in the First Law trilogy, I think they're not the be all and end all. They're not the ones making the big decisions. They're making some, but not all of them. And so I think in theory, that's a really interesting idea, just to pick out people while a crazy time is happening. But it just doesn't really work because I didn't care as much about the characters. And it's the same with this. When you have 500 pages of traveling in a book, I don't actually mind that. I know a lot of people do not like traveling in their books. If they know that that's there's going to be long periods of it, they're it's not going to be for me. That's not the case with me. I'm so fine with it, but I have to care about the character. I have to feel a connection. I have to care about them. And then I won't care. I will watch you travel for 1,000 pages. But I didn't care about these characters. I didn't care about, probably 90% of the book. But the last 10% was really good. In 10th position, we had a late entry into this list. And that is Good Spirits by B.K. Borison. I was I'm gonna read a Christmassy romance. And I've read B.K. Borison. And I've given all her books either 3 or 4. And now I've given one a 2. I did not like this book. So this follows our character, I can't even remember her name and I only read it last month, and she runs an antique shop, and then she is visited by Nolan, who is the ghost of Christmas past. And she doesn't think she's a bad person, and so she doesn't really understand why she has to go back into the past. And from what Nolan can see, he doesn't really think she's a bad person either, so he's convinced that something has gone wrong with his powers, and obviously it's a romance between the 2 of them. I didn't like this book. I was annoyed by this book. It wasn't just the romance. I don't think that they really had a lot of good chemistry or anything like that. I didn't get it. And I think both of them at different points were quite nasty to each other. Everyone has fights, but in a way it'd be you don't know each other that well. I'd just let it go. And yeah, and so I just didn't really care for them let's talk this out. I was just like, I am not rooting for you. And like their chemistry wasn't that great anyway. The spicy scenes weren't that great. And so I just was like, I don't care about you. And then a lot of this has to do with our main character and her family and her like strained relationship with them. And I just kept waiting for more about it, and that whole plotline just felt so underdeveloped. And I think it would have been a really good plotline. I think it would have been really interesting, but it just never got there. And also, do not listen to the audiobook because Nolan is supposedly Irish. And in fairness, because it is a British narrator that does the male main character part, and he actually does an okay job. There's a couple of words here and there, and we were like, ooh, but in general, good job. But the female narrator, dear Lord, no. I mean, if you're not Irish, I suppose you probably won't care. You might think that it's a good accent. It's not a good accent. It's a real bad accent she does. And it made everything worse. Then in ninth position, I have Faithbreaker by Hannah Kaner. This is the third and final book in the Godkiller trilogy. So at the very start, we follow a Godkiller. And years ago, her family was killed, and she kind of like prayed to the gods to help her because her family was like connected to one of these, and they never got any help. And she then set out to be a god killer, and so she like the worship of gods has been outlawed, and so she goes around, she kills, and she like destroys shrines, kills gods, all of that. And one day she comes across a girl who has a god who is literally like attached to her, and she doesn't know how to get rid of this god without killing her, and so she ends up begrudgingly taking this child along with her. I read this pretty early in the year, and it has mostly left my mind. I didn't love the first two anyway, but I think they were like 3 stars. Actually, I think the second one might have gotten a 4. So I thought maybe it was on upward trajectory. And this one, it just, I don't know. I think the way that relationships were building in the series and like were formed, and like there was betrayals, and some of it was kind of erased in this book nearly, and it felt a bit off. Like, we've spent however long this person is an antagonist, and then they were like, it was like half redemption, but then it was like, not really. And it just, I think it fizzled at the end. It just didn't go out with a bang. It just away. So a bit of a disappointing finale, but what can you do? And we have The Principle of the Moment by Esme Chikemi Pearson. And this one, I feel a little bad putting this lower down when I like just ranted so much about the ending of A Dark and Drowning Tide, because like I don't have like an issue like that with this book. Like, there was nothing wrong or egregious with this book. I just didn't like it. It, as I said, we're gonna see a lot of Illuminated books, unfortunately. And I think at first I actually gave this a 3-star, but then I was looking, I was like, it's not a 3-star. I didn't like it. I was so bored. Again, I said I was gonna say this phrase so many times. A great premise, a great idea, not great execution. And it is a debut, which makes me feel bad. And I think it's why I gave it 3 stars at first, because I was like, but it's a good debut. And I still agree with that. I think it's a solid debut, but it's not good, full stop. You know, it's good for a debut. It's not good, full stop. And there's plenty of debut authors who can write a good book, not just a good debut. And so I think she's definitely an author that I would revisit in the future, because I think, again, some really interesting premises. I think like the time travel aspect and all of that, like I think the world building was definitely the standout here. Like, I did enjoy that. I like the time travel and how all that worked. But the characters, it felt like we were missing scenes, because we would have them and they were like strangers, and then like they'd go, and like, yeah, I know like trauma bonds people and everything, but like they'd be like, I don't really like you, and then they'd like run from something, and then they're like besties, and it's like, oh, when did that happen? So like I think it was just like little things like that just didn't make it seamless, and I was just kind of bored reading it. But again, I am going to keep an eye and see if anything she writes is going to intrigue me in the future, because I do think that there was a good bones, but the rest just didn't deliver. Brighter Than Scale, Swifter Than Flame by Neon Yang. And I'm not gonna lie, I tried this because of the cover. I loved the cover. I thought it was such a pretty cover, and I still believe that it's a pretty cover. It is a gorgeous cover. I am not a novella person. Actually, I think I'm changing on that. I think I might be a bit of a novella person, but I'm definitely pickier. But I have discovered that the occasional novella can work for me. I mean, Murderbot is one of my favorite series now. And I can't even remember what this is about. I follows a swordswoman, and she is like a knight, and she's like one of the best, and they kill dragons, and she is sent to this like foreign land to kill this particular dragon, and she arrives there and she starts to get feelings for the queen of this country, and then she starts to question her job. And I hate saying this because people write novellas for a reason. I needed it to be longer. Nothing felt developed. And I think it's a really impressive skill to be able to write a novella that does the world building, characters, all of that in one. This I just don't think delivered on it. It started conversations but didn't finish them, and it left me wanting more. And I feel like there was something that really annoyed me in it, but now I can't remember what it was. So like I feel really silly being like, there was something, but what was it? Like, what is wrong with me? My brain is just great, isn't it? Is Mistress of Lies by K.M. Enright. Again, this is an Illumicrate book. Again, a lovely edge. The cover underneath this, gorgeous. Look how gorgeous it is. This follows the daughter of a blood worker, and she is kind of like quite brutal. She's trying to prove herself, and then she is given a job to solve some murders that are happening to people from the blood workers, which are like, they're kind of vampires. And then we also follow a who thinks he's a human, and he comes across one of these murder victims, and then he is dragged into this world that he didn't want to be. And again, I think it was a good debut, but I don't think it was good. Again, good bones, not good development. I think this was over ambitious. So many plot lines, and I just don't think that our author could manage to give them all the time and care that they need. I think, again, some really good ideas. It's like a poly romance, but to be honest, not much romance happens. Like a lot of like tension and looking, and then I believe all of a sudden a lot happens. It's like, when did that all happen? There's a lot. The timeline was messy, I think, was the main thing, and so you just didn't know how much time was after passing. And so I was like, it's like, obviously we have to find this murderer, and then there's like a rebellion rising, and then there's obviously the romance, and then there's like the king, and like she has a plotline with her brother. For our book that's supposed to be a murder mystery, not a lot of murder mystery happening. A lot of meandering, I would say. That's what's happened with this book. There was a lot of meandering. I'm like, I don't mind that when you're doing stuff with it. Like, you could have used that time when you're like describing this and describing that to be building the characters, building their relationship. And so then we don't have these like jumps of like, now they're like really like, okay, yeah, they're attracted to each other, but now all of a sudden they're like in love. And it's like, okay, when did the rest happen? And same with like the plot points. It's like, if you're gonna write a fantasy romance murder mystery, like, I think you also have to do that. So I think too many genres happening. I think like one plot line needed to be cut out, or at least, because like I know this is a series, I'm not continuing obviously, like have the murder mystery in this one, like start laying the groundwork for the romance, but have the romance happen in like the second book. Like start like with the banter and like they're attracted, like longing glances. Start with that in this. Had the murder mystery, and like again the starts of that like political rebellion plotline. So we are introduced to like this magic system, how the vampire blood workers, whatever you want to call them, works. We're getting introduced to like the humans and the growing problems. There's this murder mystery happening, and then we can take that stuff that's been laid as the groundwork in the first book and then build on that in the second book, solve the murder mystery, and then like use the repercussions of that to build on all of this other stuff in the second. And I think wanted it all getting built, and it didn't all. You could have just like laid the foundation. Dragons by Amber Chen, another Illumicrate book. Again, another one that's stunning underneath, absolutely gorgeous. And this one, I don't think I can tell you a single thing that happens in this. And like, I feel bad, to be honest, because I think it might have been a me problem, if we're being 100% honest. The rest of them, I was like, you know, I don't necessarily think it was a me problem, because like, either I read like a book directly after it or before it that I really liked, or like I was in a good reading mode and all of that. This one, I think I might have actually been a problem. So this follows a woman, and she, her father is killed, and she wants to take his place in the engineering guild. So she disguises herself as her brother to infiltrate it. And as I said, I feel bad putting this so low, but I cannot remember a single thing. And this is one of the most recent books on this list that I have read. I cannot remember a single thing that happens in this. Nothing stood out to me. I just didn't connect to it whatsoever. And as I said, that actually might be my fault. And so I don't want to talk about this for too long, because I feel like this might be my fault. Because I remember, and like, I don't know, was it something with the writing style or something, but I remember just reading the same paragraph like 4 times to try and get it to compute in my brain. And I still can't remember anything that happened in it. So I don't know if it's the book or if it was just me and I was just should not have been reading or attempting to read at that time. Yeah, I was reading a lot of like 3-star books and all of that. So I think maybe that might have contributed, that I was just like not waiting for something good to come along, and like this was not driving with me, and my brain was like, another one that I'm not loving, woo. So yeah, but as I said, I feel a little bad talking about this because I can't remember anything about this. To Gaze Upon Wicked Gods by Molly X. Chang. Again, another Limerick book. Can you tell why I have stopped buying Limerick? I like Limerick's books because of like the special editions they do of like books that are already out, like the Bryn Chapeko series and Rick Riordan and all of like there's Susan Dennard stuff and the Winter Night trilogy I have their versions of, and they're farcier books. Like they do a lot of books from authors I like, but their subscription just doesn't do books. And also I feel like a lot of these toe the line of like YA adult and just like don't fully go there. And so this one, and I will say, so our main character in this one has like a death ability, and she is trying to live a quiet, peaceful life, trying to avoid getting caught by the Empire, and she accidentally gets caught using her gift, and she is taken by the prince and used basically as an assassin. I do remember when this book came out there was a lot of controversy about it. I can kind of see it. Like a big thing about this was that whether or not it was that it was like a colonizer romance. And I do think like obviously she came out and was like, no, he's not the guy she falls for in the end. Like that was like supposed to be like a big reveal for the second book or something. I don't know. But at the end of the day, she, as a Molly X. Chang, posted that this book was Zutara on crack, which even if you like Zutara, at the end of the day, that is what that is. It is a colonizer romance. Obviously, like, he redeems himself, he joins the good side and all of that, which, like, I'm not sure that's gonna happen here. So, like, that is what that is. So, by you saying that it was Zutara on crack, you put that expectation in people's heads, so you can't then be surprised when people are like, it's a colonizer romance. Like, you can't be like that, I feel. I think that it's clear that there's, like, it's setting up, like, a love triangle in this. And so, like, I don't really understand why. So, like, when you actually read the book, like, I don't think it's very, maybe written the best, because I can't, and, like, I think we should be able to have messy characters. And her way of thinking is very skewed sometimes, because she's just, like, she's kind of a little like a Dark and Drowned Tide, where she's like, no, violence is bad, but she's like, I hate the Empire. But she's like, but violence is bad, so I'm not going to do anything about it. And then she gets mad at people who do want to stand up. And she's like, I can't believe you would do this. And that's where you're kind of like, wait, what? And then she's like doing obviously bad things, but she's like, yeah, but I'm doing it to protect my family, and other people are doing this to protect everyone's family. They're trying to stand up. And so, like, I think it could have been an interesting discussion, but I think maybe Molly X. Chang should have come back to this idea when she had a couple more books under her belt, and like, because I just don't think it was the best written that it could have been, because I think, again, there was some interesting ideas, but not developed. And my main problem isn't actually all of that. Like, as I said, when I was reading, I was like, well, I feel like it's actually pretty obvious that she's setting up this like childhood romance. But my main problem is with the world building, actually. So if you didn't know this, like, she has an author's note at the start and all of that. And she says that it is inspired by Unit 731, which happened during World War II. And so about like her like family, like her ancestry, what happened to them under Russian and Japanese occupation. And which like then, so like I think wanting to write a story like for your grandparents and all of that, I think it's sweet for you to want to like honor them and tell a story. But then she introduces these Roman elements. So it's actually the Roman Empire. It's not the Japanese or Russian. And so I'm like, she's making this fictional world, but then she's making it Roman, and it's very obviously actual ancient Rome. And I'm very confused by that, because why aren't you writing it based on Russian and Japanese? And I purely think, because I think there's a lot of Roman inspired fantasy, I purely think it's for like an aesthetic reason, not because like everybody has, like you say, the Roman Empire. I'm sorry, that just brings me back to every man thinks about the Roman Empire once a day or whatever. Everybody think about the Roman Empire. We all have like a picture in our heads of like the columns and, you know, these big massive buildings and like the Colosseum, all of those things. I actually went to Rome this year, tangent. I did go to Rome, so I have like pictures to show. So like we have an idea in our heads when people say like Roman. And I think we also, when like people are saying like things about like Chinese inspired fantasy, we also, I think, have an idea in our head. Again, maybe a stereotypical idea, but like we have like this in our head and we have this in our head. And I think she did Roman, and for that reason, that she didn't have to do world building, because the world building here is non-existent, basically, because she is making us on what knowledge we know about the Roman Empire. She's like, that's enough, that'll do. You like have a vague idea of what this is about. I'm like, no, you have to do the world building. Even if it's Roman inspired, you still have to tell us what your world building is. You can't just say it's Roman inspired, trust me. No, you gotta give me more. And this is not a problem that is just with her. This is a problem I found a lot. Actually, another Illumicrate, I read it last year, so it's not in this. To Cage a God by Elizabeth May. That was Russian inspired. And it was so clearly like a Pinterest board. Russian inspired. And then she's like, you get what I'm going for? Okay, you don't need to know what the architecture of the time is. You don't need to know what the like political rules are. You can make it up from what you know. And it's the same with this. And like, it's same with the Grisha trilogy. Again, another Russian inspired. Like, drives me up the wall. Like, give me the world building. So that was actually my main issue. Never mind all of the stuff that was people thought was controversial about it. That didn't bother me. What bothered me was the world building, and I thought it was sloppy. A Dark and Drowning Tide by Alison Saft. This is in a Illumicrate edition. It is such a beautiful copy. And this one is probably one of the most disappointing I feel on the list to me, because this started so strong. Like at the first 50%, I was like, I think this is going to be a 4-star. And then the second half happened. Yeah, so beautiful cover, beautiful edge, everything. It's a gorgeous book. So I was excited going in. It's sapphic, it's folklore. We follow Lorelai. No, it's close enough. So we follow Lorelai, and she is a folklorist, and she set off on an expedition to find this magical well. And she is going along with her mentor on the ship. And then on the ship, her mentor is killed, and so she has to figure it out, because she is now the new leader of the expedition, and the only person she can trust, and the only person she knows didn't do it, was her academic rival Sylvia. And the two of them then have to work together, and obviously like some feelings start. As I said, I was really enjoying this, and I think there's a vlog of me reading it, and actually I think a lot of these Illumicrate ones are in the same vlog, but I was reading it, grand, and I was liking it. I was enjoying the characters. I was liking the little, like, you know, interactions between them. So Lorelai is not the most likable character. She's very brash. She's very defensive, but I was like intrigued by her. I liked the world building that was happening. And I did say, I'm pretty sure in my halfway update, I was like, I don't know how all of this is going to be resolved, because there's like political tensions. There's obviously the romance building. And like at this stage, like nothing like overly romantic had happened. It was just kind of like hints at it. And I was like, I don't know how like finding this well, all of the political stuff, and like it's only a standalone and it'll get a satisfying romantic ending. How all of this is going to happen in the last 50%. Well, that would be because the answer to all of the problems, colonialism is good. What now? That is the lesson? That is the message of the book? And I am bewildered by the fact that so many people, okay, how can you read that book and see the messaging is all of these people who don't want their land to be under this empire are actually in the wrong because violence is bad. And the people who have given this high ratings, did you actually read the book? Did you just read like the romantic stuff and we're like, isn't this so wonderful? No, words can't even describe like the shock that I went through when that was the plot twist. When that was like the reveal that this character had like done this because she wanted to free her people from the empire. She didn't want them to be under the empire. And they're like, but you killed someone. That's so bad. And you shouldn't have done that. You're going to start a war and war is bad. It's like, yeah, but I don't want my people under an empire. None of us want to be here. It's like, yeah, but war's worse. And like, cause like when it first started, I was like, with an interest, it's going to be like an interesting character dissection of like, you know, a character with like PTSD and like, she's gonna like, you know, dive into this, but then it's going to be like, yes, we'll find a way together. No, it's like, war's bad. We don't want to do that again. That's what's so, like the first half was so good. That second half, 1 star. And honestly, it has put me off trying anything else from Alison Saft. And in second place, this is the one that people are probably going to be most mad at me for, and that is Brigands and Breadknives by Travis Baldree. I don't know why I keep reading. Okay, I do know why I keep reading these books. I was reading all of the Goodreads fantasy nominees, and that's also why I read The Devils. And so I read this, and then I never actually filmed that video. I just was like, I'm good actually. But I read so many books. Gave the first book 3 stars. I gave the second book 3 stars or 2 stars. It might have been a 2 star. And I gave this one a 2 star. This one is like more plot heavy. I just didn't care. I'm so sorry, I don't care. Like, I understand why people like this. Like, it's slice of life. This one, not so much, as I said. But it just does nothing for me. Even in my cozy fantasy, I need more. Like, I feel like even in the ones, like, the cozy fantasies that I have enjoyed, even though it's not, like, world ending, to the character, it feels like the world is ending, nearly. You know, like, this is a big deal for the character, for, like, their reputation, or their dreams, or whatever. And so you, like, feel, like, at least some bit of stakes. There's none of that in Legends and Lattes. As I said, there's a little bit of that in this one, because, like, it's a little more plot heavy. But, like, the first one, she has a coffee shop. And, like, even then, she's like, I'm giving it a go. We'll see how it goes. So it's not as though she's like, this is make or break for me. I need this coffee shop to work. And so, like, I just need something. Just give me something. So, yeah, it's just, I'm not reading another one. I don't know if there's going to be another one, but if there's another one, I'm not reading it. Even if it's on a Goodreads list, not doing it. Okay? I will leave those books alone because they are not for me. And that's fine. Sometimes you just gotta admit that. I also forgot to mention, all of those ones that I have just talked about, those 10, are 2 stars. I only have 1 star, and that is for my final book. The winner, congratulations to you. I'm sure you are so proud of this. Yeah. It's A Night to Surrender by Tessa Dare. Words cannot describe how angry I am at this book. Truly devastating. So, this book is the first book in the Spindle Cove series. It is a historical romance series that follows a town that is filled mostly with women because they go there when they are ailing so they can recover by the seaside. I actually read the second book first. In 2024, I did a trying historical romances because every year on Valentine's Day, I have tried like a different subgenre. Also, I don't know what I'm going to do for Valentine's Day this year. I have done contemporary romance, I've done dark romance, I've done fantasy romance, I've done historical romance. And so I actually read the second book because somebody told me that was a really good book. Maybe it was Maria. I know Maria gave me another recommendation from the historical romance, but I'm not sure did she also tell me to read that one. And it was such a surprise for me. It was a 4 star. It was my favorite book of that video. It was pure ridiculousness. Like, it was over the top. It was kind of nonsensical at little points, but I ate it up. It was so much fun. Like, I had such a good time. And so for the 25 romance, I decided to go back and read some sequels to books I had read in my Valentine's vlogs previously. And for this one, I was like, obviously I'm going to choose the series that I liked the most, the one that I gave the 4 star, The Pleasant Surprise. And so I was like, I'm going to go back and I'm going to read book number 1 in the series, and that is A Night to Surrender. And I gave this book 1 star. I hated it with a burning passion. And not only did I hate it, it made me like the second book less. And like, that is what's the real crime here. Number 1, the misogyny. God, it was nasty. Like, these men gave me such a massive ick. Like, they were so macho and manly, and like, he was obsessed with manliness. He was obsessed with being perceived as the most manly, as being strong. He hated the fact that our main character had like power. Like, and then it was like trying to undo that, obviously, so you could root for him. But I was like, it's too late. I don't like him. It's too late. There's no turning back. I got the ick from him, and I hate him. And he has this, I think, cousin who has come along with him, and he's even worse. He's like, let's show these women who actually run this town. And he's like, so he like, well, they're supposed to be having like a tea time puzzle day, and he goes into the pub, and he's like, actually, it's the men's day out. We're taking over this place. And I was like, I hope something tragic happens to you before the end of this book. I was like, I hate this dude. I hope that, like, I was like, obviously I've gotten the major ick from our main character. I'm not rooting for him in the romance at all. I don't like him. I'm not rooting for this romance, but I hope, like, the only way that this will be any bit redeeming is that he takes that cousin, throttles him, and throws him out of town forever. And then I was about, I'd say 60% of the book, way through the book. And the cousin has a scene with one of the character that I was like, you know, I was like, oh my god, that's the character from the second book that I love. Like, she's a bit nerdy. She's a bit nerdy. She's, you know, very quiet and reserved and all of this. And he has a scene with her, and like, they have like a bit of banter. And then I realized this guy that I was like, I hope something terrible happens to him. He was the guy that I liked in the second book. He's the love interest in the second book. I gave that book 4 stars. I liked their relationship. I was like, oh my god. Like, I had like obviously blocked his name out of my memory, but I was like, I hate this dude. He's the worst. And then, as I said, a scene happened, and there was like weird banter between them, and I was like, oh my god, I know you. I loved you. I genuinely got it. I wish I had filmed my reaction when I realized it, because I was just in shock. Horror. Like, oh my god. I couldn't believe it. So yes, so well done, Tessa Dare. You have made me retroactively like that book class, which is so sad. And like, here's the thing, it's like, he was a bit like, you know, he was like, you know, playboy and all of this kind of stuff. Like, just tosses women aside when he's done with them, kind of a, you know, he was a rake, you know? And like, so like, I was like typical kind of a thing when I was reading that second book, when I was reading the second book first. But I liked his character development. I liked like getting the inside of his brain. And I'm like, no. I was like, you did not make it seem like he was that bad in the second book. So yeah, so truly the worst book. And like, this is the worst by a long shot. Like, the rest of these books, like, had redeemable qualities to them. This one, I hated this book. So yeah, don't talk to me about it. So yes, so those are my worst books. Let me know, what is your least favorite book of the entire year? Have you ever read a book that was so bad it made you dislike the first book in the series, or the second book, or whatever? Let me know. Thank you guys so much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one.